At More or Less, we are committed to a thorough examination of all the major political pledges, which is why we now need to turn to the satirical candidate, Count Binface, who describes himself as an intergalactic space warrior. Count Binface has previously said he's running for a laugh, but with manifesto pledges like this, I wonder who's laughing.
Croissants to be price capped at £1.10 and 99 flakes to cost 99p.
The price of food is no joke. Between April 2022 and April 2024, average food prices in the UK rose by more than 22%. It previously took almost 12 years for food prices to rise by the same amount. And as a result, governments around the world have intervened in the market for food. Egypt spends billions of dollars subsidising bread. France and Greece have policies on the matter. And in February 2022, Hungary introduced a literal, if temporary, cap on the price of basics, including milk, sugar, flour, vegetable oil and eggs. Price caps on rent, usually called rent control, are common in cities around the world. And in the UK, the government caps the price of journeys by train. So this croissant price cap is well-chewed territory. But a price cap on croissant might have unintended consequences, as I discussed with Professor Paul Dobson, an economist at the University of East Anglia. As a thought experiment, let's just say the market price of croissant is, say, £2, and in comes a price cap that says, no, we're going to bring that way back down to £1.10. That's obviously nice if you like your croissant, and you can get them at £1.10 instead of £2, but what are the likely side effects of such a rule?
Well, the first one is that demand for croissants would increase, and then it depends how suppliers would respond. They may choose to be able to supply it at that level because it's still profitable to do so. If it's not, then they'll withdraw the product from the market. Or they could choose to change the product. They could resize the product, shrink it, or reduce the quality and the ingredients.
Well, those tiny little croissants you sometimes get in hotels.
Yes.
They're terrible.
Yeah. So even if the price is capped, we haven't defined the product, both in terms of its ingredients and in terms of its size. And also, are we just talking about all butter croissant or something which contains different oils?
Well, sorry, if it's not all butter, it's not a croissant in my opinion. But I guess this points to one of the problems then. How do you define a croissant?
Sorry, I'll try not to laugh. Yes. The issue is defining a croissant and then ensuring compliance with that. So there isn't deviations away from changing the formula for producing a croissant or its size.
So you could very easily see either croissant disappearing from the shelves because retailers they're going to make a loss on every one they sell. Why on earth would they want to sell them? Or you might see the reformulation of the croissant into something that's either worse or smaller or into something that's different and therefore isn't affected by the price cap.
That's quite right. There could be another effect. You could have a black market for croissants that are sold above the price ceiling if there is such shortages occurring.
Oh, I see, right. So you go in and you can order your Cornish pasty and your sliced white bread, and then if there's a nod and a wink, the baker will reach under the counter and pull out the croissant. But the man from the government doesn't need to know about that.
That's quite right. You've got to keep an eye on the supply of croissants to count them all and make sure that they're all sold at the price ceiling.
I mean, it all sounds like this may not be an entirely serious policy. I mean, are there examples of price caps that are thought to have worked reasonably well?
Well, I think this price cap, as a suggestion, seems to have worked. I did a quick spot check on the market today and I saw that Tesco and Sainsbury's and Waitrose were pricing their croissants at £1.10. So they'd obviously gone to the price cap, but dismayed to find at least one of those retailers selling an almond croissant at £1.40.
Well, I mean, nearly a dessert, the almond croissant these days. But, I mean, this is interesting then. So Count Binface is really invoking the power of Nobel laureate Thomas Schelling, the power of the focal point, where he basically is, merely by making this a very public declaration of intent, he is shaming the supermarkets into coordinating on £1.10, because anybody who prices more than £1.10, people will see that and go, oh, Binface wouldn't stand for this, and they'll just look bad.
That's quite right.
Now, Paul, I don't want you to betray any secret. We may be advising different political parties, and that's not something to be discussed here. But if you were to be advising the Count Binface party, and they came to you and said, look, it is an absolute priority, Professor Dobson, that the price of croissant is kept manageable. We don't want it to go above £1.10. Would you suggest, OK, go ahead with the price cap, or would you suggest an alternative way of achieving that policy goal that might be more economically efficient?
Well, they've got a range of alternatives. Yes, you could impose a price cap, but that seems a rather extreme measure. You could try as a government to apply a subsidy, but of course it's voluntary whether the retailers pass on that subsidy, so that might not be wholly effective. You could introduce a state-sponsored croissant to price into the market and then let competition encourage other vendors to sell at £1.10 as well. But effectively, if you want to ensure that the price is capped and limited, then this is probably the most direct way of doing it.
Professor Paul Dobson. How much would a croissant subsidy cost? Imagine that everyone in the country bought 1.5 croissants a day, very much a lowball estimate, and the croissant subsidy was £1 per pastry. That would cost £100 million a day, or more than £35 billion a year. Arguably, very good value.
Sorry, Tim. I've got to intervene here. That is the worst number I have heard all election.
I'm so sorry, Kate.
You should be.